Hey everybody, it's Karnak, Star Wars Armada Explained. It's your buddy, it's your pal. Thank you for joining me. Clone Wars, it's here. I'm finally doing videos on some of the cards. I know a lot of people have been asking, when are you going to do videos? It's like, well, I had to update and figure all that out before I could finally get into cards. Now I have all that to the best of what I can understand right now, to where I feel comfortable enough to start doing videos on these new upgrade cards. So let's dive right into the first Clone Wars card here. And this one I've gotten a lot of questions about. And I debated which one to do first, but I figured this is the card that likely would see the most play first. So we're going to talk about swivel mount batteries. And swivel mount batteries, I've got it blown up nice and big right now just so you can read all of the text that is on this card. It's so much text. Oh my gosh, a lot of cards in Clone Wars just have text and text and text. Takes forever to go through. But let's go through what it says. This upgrade card, if you look at the bottom right hand corner, you're going to see it costs, I believe, 8 points. If I look here, yep, 8 points. You can see it's got a new symbol on there for what faction it has, and it has a dual faction symbol. It means that it can be equipped only by a Grand Army of the Republic or the Confederate Separatist States, or Confederate Independent States, or whatever their name is. I'm just going to call them Republican Separatists. If you look at the bottom left-hand corner of the card, you'll see it equips to the Turbolaser upgrade slot. Swivel mount batteries, they're non-unique. You can equip as many of them, one per ship. It is a modification, though, so it sucks up the modification slot. And you'll see there on the right-hand side, it's got a new mechanic that's been introduced in Armada 1.5. It's a refresh mechanic, or a ready cost, as it's called in RNG. And how does that work? Well, I'm going to read through the card real quick. I'll cover the ready cost, and then we're going to dive in to all the card stuff that's on here. So, swivel mount batteries, modification. Again, modification, you can only ever have one card with the modification trait equipped to a ship. So you couldn't have like swivel mount batteries and like H9 turbolasers. You can only have one modification period. Okay. When you reveal a command, you may exhaust this card to choose one of your hull zones and mark it with a focus token. While attacking a ship from that hull zone, add one die of any color from an adjacent hull zone's armament to your attack pool. While attacking from adjacent hull zones, remove one die from your attack pool. When you ready this card, remove that focus token. It's a lot of text on here. And there's so many different parts to each part of this card where if you're not getting a firm understanding of what this all means, some people have had a very difficult time understanding what this card does or doesn't do. And again, I'm going to walk through all of that. I'm going to explain each part. So one thing about this card is that it has, as I mentioned before, it has a ready cost. So when you do reveal your dial, and again, I'll break this down step by step, and you place your focus token, if you ever want to remove that focus token, you need to ready this card in the status phase, which is the last phase of the 4 phases of the game. Because remember, you have ship phase, you have squadron phase, or you have command phase, where you set command dials, ship phase, squadron phase, and then status phase. There we go. And it's the end of the status phase is where you ready cards, and you are able to pay a cost. If you want to remove this focus token, you need to pay a concentrate fire token to spend to refresh this card, and when you do, that's when you can take the focus token off, and then this card essentially is not in effect anymore, and if you want to put it someplace else, you can. So for 8 points, I'm seeing a lot of people take this card just because it's new, it's interesting, it's fun to try, but I'm not ultimately sure how competitive this card will end up being for these factions, but I guess we'll see. I'm not here to talk about what's competitive, not competitive. Let's get into the rules. Okay. So I had a really difficult time initially trying to read this card because, again, all that text on there. But when I finally took the time to break it down, I actually found out that it has 4 different effects on that card. And the reason why it's not separated into paragraphs like you would find with other cards having their separate effects separated, they just didn't have the room. And so they just mashed them all together. And so it reads like it's all one effect when it's really not. It's 4 separate effects. And I'm gonna break it up on here to show you what I mean. When I finally separated them all out, is when I finally understood how the card worked. Because remember, whens and whiles are their own effects that happen specifically in those times. So when you separate out the card like that, it's so much easier to understand. So essentially, again, card has 4 effects. The first one is when you reveal a command, you may exhaust this card to choose one of your hull zones and mark it with a focus token. So let's start with that. All right, so I've got my my acclimator here. We're going to say my acclimator's got the swivel mounts set here. Oh, I forgot to grab a command dial. See if I can grab one of those real quick. Here we go. Command dial. Boom. All right. So we're going to say, you know what? I've revealed a, I've set the command, concentrate fire command. It's the first round of the turn. I flip this command over. When you reveal a command, which I do want to state, if you don't reveal a command due to some reason that you discard your command dial, you're not able to utilize this card. You need to be able, your ship needs to be able to reveal a dial. So again, when you reveal a command, you may exhaust this card to choose one of your hull zones and mark it with a focus token. That's the first step. Okay, reveal command. Yeah, I want to go ahead and exhaust this card. So you turn it sideways. I've exhausted it. Now I can place a focus token. And some of you are saying, what the heck is a focus token? Well, remember early warning system? It has those tokens that were red and they're called chaff tokens. They've just taken it, they've colored it blue, and they call it a focus token now. So now you've got red tokens and these blue tokens. Red is supposed to be for early warning system and chaff. The blue is for focus, for cards that require focus. Honestly, you could use either color to your preference as long as you tell your opponent what it's for and what it's doing. I don't think too many people are going to get terribly too concerned. Again, just make sure you're being clear for your opponent. But anyway, exhaust the card, take the focus token, stick it on a hull zone. In this case, I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to stick that focus token on the front of my acclimator 2 here. And I have lots of things out on the table. I'll get to those in a minute. But, so now I've marked it. All right. And that's the first step. Okay. The second part of this card, it takes place while your ship is attacking. So while attacking a ship from that hull zone, add 1 die of any color from an adjacent hull zone's armament to your attack pool. Now, a lot of people have been misunderstanding that they believe that this is adding to their battery armament. It does not. As it says there, it's an add effect. It's an add die effect, meaning with all add effects, like in that mentions in the step 3 of attack modify effects, adds always take place after your initial roll. You never add dice to your battery armament with an add effect. It's always afterwards. So very simply, when do you add the die from an adjacent hull zone? It's after you gather your die, you roll your initial pool, then you can choose a die from your adjacent armament, and then roll it into your attack pool. It's an after that step. Okay. Just for my benefit, I'm going to unexhaust that card just so I can read it off here. So when you look at your armament, so let's say that we're attacking this Munificent. It's at it's at long range, we'll say. So again, you always measure from cardboard to cardboard. It's at long range. What do I have here? I have 3 red dice I can throw. All right, so I draw line of sight. There is no obstruction. There's nothing blocking it. I have my focus token on the front. Okay, so I get my dice pool. I roll my 3 reds. Bam, bam, bam. All right, now that I've rolled my initial attack pool, now, as it says, I can add 1 die from the adjacent. And since I have 2 reds and 1 black there, well, a black die is better odds for more damage. So I'm going to go ahead and add a black die to this long range attack. Boom. All right, I got 4 damage. Perfect. And that is, in a nutshell, how the card is working so far. Okay, perfect. So of course, if you have some card effects like, for example, if I rolled a hit crit, if I had like an ordnance card equipped, like concussion missiles or assault proton torpedoes, you would be able to resolve these critical effects even though you're at long range, because when you gather your initial dice pool and roll that, you are able to add other die of various colors if these cards effects allow you to do so. That's totally fine. You just can't just gather close range dice and throw it at long range unless you have, again, some way of being able to do that due to a card effect. All right, so I've done that. I rolled my pool. We blasted away. We did some damage. Now let's say that we've sailed past this guy, and now he's in my side arc. And I want to shoot him. He's at close range. So what does the next part of this card say? It says, while attacking from adjacent hull zones, remove one die from your attack pool. And again, for the swivel mount batteries, I'm not sure if I mentioned this already or not. This only works when you're attacking ships for the add die effect. It does not work against squadrons. You can't add dice against squadrons. Doesn't work against squadrons. Don't put a focus token on the front of your hull zone because you think it's going to help you shoot more squadrons. That's not what it does. It only helps for shooting ships. Okay. So, but this second part is, you remove a die if you're attacking from your adjacent hull zone. So again, when you have that hull zone marked with that focus token, any hull zone that's to the left or to the right of that focus token, it doesn't matter if it's on your front, if you're left or your right, if it's on your left, if it's your front or rear, essentially wherever that token is, whatever's to the left, to the right, that's your adjacent. Just not the opposite hull zone is not affected. But now it's in our, like I said, it's in our adjacent hull zone here on the left. So when does this effect take place? The remove die. Well, again, this is the same timing as obstruction, because obstruction also has the same timing window where you gather your attack pool. In this case, it's the true red and the black die. And again, it's saying you need to remove a die from your attack pool when attacking. And again, same time frame as obstruction. So you pick up your true red, you pick up your black, and say, okay, I got to ditch one of these die. And you say, all right, I got to ditch the red die. Boom, red die is gone. Now you're only rolling a red die and a black die. So we're going to go ahead and roll that. Pow, 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 pow. And we got 1 damage. So that is how that effect works. One thing I do want to point out, though, is again, because it is the same window as obstruction, but it's not obstruction, if there was obstruction there, like an obstacle or another ship, and when you draw a line of sight through and it's obstructed, you would lose 2 die. You would remove 1 die due to the swivel mount battery effect from attacking from adjacent hull zone. You would also remove 1 die due to obstruction. So your side arc that initially started with 3 die, now you're down to only rolling 1 die at close range. Or if this was taking place at long range, you'd pick up your 2 red dice and they would both poof out of existence because you would remove 1 from the card effect, remove 1 from obstruction. You would have no dice to roll, no attack can be conducted. You're very sad. So placement of these focus tokens, you're getting a lot of firepower in the hull zone you put it in, but again, you potentially can suffer some consequences when trying to attack from your adjacent hull zones. Now, the final effect, because we did 1, which is the revealed command, you exhaust the card, place the focus token. Second effect of the card is when you're attacking a ship from your focused hull zone, you can add 1 die from an adjacent hull zone after you roll your attack pool. Third effect is, again, if you're attacking from an adjacent hull zone, remove a die. The fourth and final effect is when you ready this card, remove that focus token. So again, this comes back to if it's the status phase and you're readying cards, the only way you can ready this card to remove that focus token is, again, you pay a concentrate fire token. If you don't have a concentrate fire token, you cannot ready this card. You cannot remove that token. You're stuck with it wherever you put it. Now, when you reveal the command, you don't have to exhaust the card. You don't have to utilize its ability. But once you do, unless you pay the cost to get rid of that, you're stuck with it wherever you put it. Okay. Let's go into some more of the intricacies here of what's going on with this card that some people may not realize. So, as I mentioned before with this add die effect, it's for any attack that you make from an adjacent hull zone. So to use this example again of being in the side arc, if there was a bunch of squadrons in your side arc, and this Acclimator 2 rolls a blue and a black, when you go to attack each of these squadrons, you would have to remove a die from each squadron you attack with your anti-squadron armament. So you would either remove the blue die or the black die. And again, if there's obstruction there, where did I put that? I don't know where I just put that obstacle. Did I delete it on accident? Maybe I did. Oh no, there it is. So again, if there's an obstacle there, and there's obstruction going out to each of those squadrons, again, you'd go from the 2 dice you'd pick up, and again, poof, they both pop out of existence, because you'd have to remove, again, 1 die due to obstruction, 1 die due to the fact you're attacking from the adjacent hull zone. This also affects attacks from cards. For example, if you had ordnance pods equipped to this acclimator, or to a ship that has the swivel mounts equipped and ordnance pods equipped. You know, because again, you are making an attack from a designated hull zone, but again, it's an attack of only 1 black die. Even with no obstruction there, as soon as you try to attack these squadrons, the adjacent hull zone effect of the swivel mounts would take that dice away from you. So you really don't want to use cards like that in combination, because it's going to just not be very helpful for you to do that. You have to be very mindful of your adjacent hull zones. Okay. What are some other things? Let me start going through the KARM here. But you can see, you know, when I broke that up, instead of just being this huge wall of text that there's just so much, when you break it down to its individual components, the card becomes a lot easier to follow. I'll go ahead and put these back how I found them. Okay. So we went over how to do that. We went over how ordnance pods or other cards like that are affected by being an adjacent hull zone. Oh, let's talk about cards that add to your battery armament. Something, for example, like the high-capacity ion turbines. Now, a Munificent, for example, it has 2 red die, 2 blue die in its front arc, but only 3 red die in its side arcs. So, for example, if you were to mark a focus token on the front, I mean, you would be able to take a red die and add it to, you know, more red die. That's well and dandy. Or, you know, if you took it and marked it on its side, you would be able to pull off like a blue die to throw at long range. But again, to get back to the example I'm going for, because a Munificent can equip a ion cannon card, such as the high-capacity ion turbine. Oh no, they're both modifications. I totally forgot. Well, the example still works in case this ever changes in the future. So if you had something that increases your battery armament of a color of a die in your side arc, for example, so like, for example, if you could somehow take both these cards, you have a blue die in your side. If you mark the front of your front hull zone there of the focus token, you would be able to pull like that blue die from your side arc and throw it out your front. But again, they're both modifications. You would never be able to equip these cards. I just have it here just as an example of, if this somehow could happen, then this is also possible. Okay. Go ahead and delete that. Delete that. Some of you are going to wonder about, well, what about counter and salvo? Let me just make sure I'm not skipping over anything else. Right. Yeah, if a ship is equipped with an upgrade card to increase its battery armament, you would be able to use that die in its attack. Okay. What about salvo and counter? Let's talk about counter first. So, again, if you've got the front of this acclimator, for example, marked with the focus token, and you also have like quad laser turrets equipped, which gives your ship counter 1 if you are attacked at distance 1. Let's say it comes in and it shoots your side. Typically, you would be able to shoot back at that squadron with counter 1, which is a blue die. But again, if you're marked with a focus token and it's the adjacent hull zone that's you're trying to counter back with, you would lose that die before you would be able to roll it with the counter. It would affect that die from the quad laser turrets. So again, that's reducing your chances of being effectively able to fight back, with counterattacks. How does this affect salvo? This is one I've argued with so many people about, and so many people, I don't understand why this concept is difficult to understand, and it largely has to do with the way things are written in RNG, but it seems crystal clear to me. A lot of people think that salvo just shoots from nowhere, that it doesn't make an attack from anywhere. It just is. It's an energy. It's a being of pure energy. You know, it's everywhere. It's inside of us. It's like the Force. It just happens. No one knows why it happens. And that's absolutely not the case. Not at all. Salvo, when you are drawing line of sight and checking range when you're initially being attacked, and when you use salvo, you're using the same checks the attacker make. You are attacking from the same hole zone back at your attacker, now as the new attacker, from the same hole zone. Because you still draw line of sight, you still check range. It is the same checks that were made before, but you're still following every single attack step. You're not skipping any steps. Some steps might be modified, but you're not skipping anything. Okay, so when you are attacking with salvo, you are attacking from the hole zone that was attacked using the printed battery armament of the rear hole zone. You are not attacking from the rear hole zone. You're not attacking from nothing. You're making an attack from the hole zone that was attacked with a battery armament that consists of dice from the rear hole zone. Not from the rear hole zone itself, just the dice battery from that hole zone. Again, all very crystal clear in RNG, but some people like to argue, I guess. I don't know why. And this is, if you want to argue further, just know that I've had a developer themselves tell me, no, that's how that works. We don't understand why people don't get it. Well, it's like, well, because you don't write clear enough and you're stupid. I don't call them stupid, but it's just like they don't write it out clear enough, and that's why people have all this confusion. Anyway, I've ranted on that long enough. So how does this affect salvo? So if you were attacking from, like, for example, this ship was attacking from the front hole zone, no issues. You're not going to lose any dice from your salvo attack because, again, it's from the focus zone, or if it's from the rear hole zone, totally fine. But if it's from an adjacent hole zone that you're salvoing from, of whatever is marked, you would lose a die. Because, again, it doesn't matter if it's from, if you attack, what am I trying to say? If you attack the front that's marked with a focus token, when you salvo, you wouldn't lose a die. If you attack an adjacent hole zone here to the side, when you go to salvo, you would lose a die because it's an adjacent hole zone of the marked focus token. For example, if you had a focus token marked on the left side here and you're over here on the right, when you shoot, that wouldn't affect the dice you're gathering from the rear because you're not attacking the rear. That's not an adjacent hole zone. You're shooting the right-hand side. I think you guys get enough of the concept here of what I'm trying to lay out. I think you guys understand. But again, if you have questions, please ask. I will explain in more detail. Or just go look at my entry in my Armada reference manual. It's laid out there. That will let you know. And again, if you want more information about, like, how does the add effect work, how does the remove effect work, examples, I have examples in my reference manual as well. The final thing I want to touch on with swivel mount batteries, and this is something, again, I've seen people already attempt to do, and unfortunately it does not work, is, for example, like the Battle Refit hard cell does not have a battery armament in its rear hole zone. And I've seen some people be like, I will mark its rear hole zone with a focus token, and now it has a die that I can use to attack with. And again, no, that's not how that works, per how we already know how Akbar works with GR-75 flotillas for Rebels. Because remember, the GR-75 medium transports, they have no dice in their side armaments. And Akbar is an add effect. So some people, again, in the early days were saying that these GR-75 transports were getting 2 dice that they could blast away with. And that's not the case because, again, it's an add effect. Add effects only take place after you roll your initial attack pool. So again, even if you were to mark a focus token on the rear of this hard cell, you would try to gather an attack pool, but you have no attack pool to gather. The attack would fail. You wouldn't be able to add a die in after the fact because you didn't roll an attack pool to start with. The attack doesn't happen. Okay, so no, you can't put a focus token on its rear to shoot magic dice where it has no dice to start with. Okay, I think I've covered everything. I think that is swivel mount batteries. I'm just going to do a double check real quick. Nope, I think I've got everything covered. Of course, if you feel like I got something wrong, or if you feel like I missed anything, or if you have any questions, leave some comments. Let me know about it. With the FFG forums closing down, I'm on the Star Wars Armada Discord. I'm on the TTS, the tabletop Discord. I'm on a bunch of other Discords. I'm not on everyone's Discord, but I'm trying to be more active and involved in the community. I'm on the Facebook page for the Star Wars Armada group. So there's ways to reach me if you need to reach me. But you guys are all fantastic. Thank you so much for your support. I look forward to a fantastic 2021. And hey, I'll catch you guys next time.